I'd like to show you how to sterilize grain jars for spore inoculation for growing mushrooms. First thing you need to start off with is organic rye grain. You want to use organic rye grain as a food substrate because it is found to be the most successful, and organic because it won't have pesticides or fungicides on the grain. Now this grain was soaked for about 8 hours, no more than 24 hours, and then strain off the water, put it into a jar. I'm using a 16-ounce mason jar because I think it's the best size for me right now. Of course, you can go a little bit larger or smaller. And I'm using the loose grain technique. A lot of people are talking about the PF tech for growing mushrooms, and I haven't had a lot of success with the PF tech. It's essentially you get this hard little cake, and you have to put it into your fruiting chamber and create lots of moisture for it so it doesn't dry out. And I found I just got little tiny mushrooms. I had trouble with the moisture content in the space, and it was just not as very successful. However, when I tried the loose grain technique, I found that the mushrooms grew twice as fast, or the mycelium colonized the jar twice as fast because there was more airspace in between each little grain, versus PF tech. It's a lot denser with food substrate, and it doesn't allow the mycelium networks to grow quite as fast or as easily. So you want airspace, and that's ideal. So hence, whole grains are good. And in this case, with the loose grain technique, once it's colonized, I can just dump this into a little dish bowl thing for casing, or I can combine both jars into a larger casing device and have even a larger casing. So it's way more versatile. Anyway, so once you have your hydrated grain in your jar, fill it about 3/4 of the way. You want to be able to shake it up, move around about a week into its colonization. Next, you need to take your lid and drill 2 holes into the top. This is where you get your inoculation points. I found the drill is the best way to get your holes in there. If you use the hammer and nail technique, I found it's bending metal and bashing up. It looks way prettier when you drill it. When you put your lid on, you need to be facing up. The rubber can be facing down, but what happens is when you heat pasteurize it in the big pot, it's just the rubber's going to stick to the glass. It'll create a nice seal, but you'll have to use a bottle opener and pry it off, and you'll bend the cap and have to recycle it. But if you want to be eco-friendly and reuse it again, just have the rubber facing up, seal it on, and you're ready for business. The next thing you need to do is just get a little bit of tin foil and cover the top, further keep it clean, pull it out of the jar, and let it sit for 2 weeks to keep stuff out of it. Alright, next, colonization pot, or no, this is the pasteurization pot. It's got about 2 inches of water in it. It's got a couple jar lids in here, and this is going to keep the glass grain jars off the bottom so they don't crack or anything. Now I'm going to put a second layer. I read somewhere that there's layers. I think 2 is good. And then you put a layer of tin foil on top of all that. And this way, the water, when it's bubbling up and boiling, it's not going to get up underneath into the grain jars or just cause problems. And you don't want the grains sitting in water, or the jars sitting in water. And let's see, you don't want it touching the bottom of the pot, otherwise it might crack due to the really profound heat down there. So essentially, this is it for colonization, or for pasteurization, and you should let it boil for, they say, about 3 hours on a low boil. Yeah, sounds good to me. I've had success with that. And put your lid on it, just let it sit, and then wait till these grains are totally cooled off before you inoculate.